Animation has existed for over a century and is ever evolving. It is more popular than ever and continues to captivate audiences around the world. Now a new evolution is taking place, 2.5 or hybrid animation. Hybrid animation has a unique aesthetic and an endless array of creative possibilities that enhance the storytelling experience by pushing the boundaries of visual expression and technological innovation, offering audiences something new. 2.5 animation blends the artistic expression of 2D or hand-drawn animation with the depth and realism of 3D or computer-generated animation. In this presentation, I will define 2.5 or hybrid animation and explore its appealing creation, focusing on aesthetic, technical, and financial considerations, and how they've changed over time. I will analyze a selection of hybrid animated feature films that highlight the unique qualities of hybrid animation and why they resonate with audiences. 2.5 or hybrid animation combines traditional 2D animation techniques with 3D animation or CGI. Hybrid animation emerged during the late 1980s and 1990s and rose to popularity in the 2000s, alongside technological innovations and the financial incentive to reduce production costs. 2.5 animation blends the economically viable 3D animation with 2D expressionism, creating a stunning visual experience that honors tradition and embraces innovation. Despite 3D animation's global dominance and the decline of 2D animation, there is a strong yearning for art that conveys a human touch. 2D animation remains renowned for its ability to capture human skill, innovation, and artistic expression, thereby driving the popular desire for a hybrid style. The shift in animation towards more hand-drawn characteristics is fueled by audiences who crave nostalgic comfort and seek visual media reminiscent of the films from their childhoods. The evolution of hybrid animation can be traced through a selection of animated feature films that demonstrate various techniques and approaches. This analysis organizes the films chronologically on a timeline and groups them into 3 categories: a traditional hybrid approach, a balanced hybrid approach, and a modern hybrid approach. Now we will go through the timeline of films and examine the hybrid qualities of each, as well as the financial, technical, and aesthetic factors that affected their creation. The traditional hybrid approach is representative of early hybrid animation. During the late 1980s to the late 1990s, early 2.5 animation took a more traditional approach, with hybridization centering on hand-drawn 2D animation and very selectively using 3D or CGI for sets, props, or special visual effects. Typically, this meant that 2D animated characters were placed into a 3D scene or interacted with 3D objects. This category includes films like Who Framed Roger Rabbit and The Prince of Egypt. The 1988 film Who Framed Roger Rabbit featured 2D animated characters in a live-action 3D space.
3 elaborate movies in one. It was a period film noir live-action movie. It was a feature-length animated movie, and it was a special effects movie.
Although not technically a 3D animation, it shares strong aesthetic similarities with other 2.5 animated films by placing characters within a 3-dimensional space to believably fuse 3D realism with 2D expressiveness. Computer technology for 3D animation was still emerging, and the only way to create a hybrid 2D and 3D animation was to combine live action and traditional animation.
The first take was always a walkthrough carrying these large rubber dummies of Roger Rabbit and the weasels. And that would place the camera move and set up the pacing and staging of the shot.
It was an ambitious and costly challenge that required over 300 animators.
The puppet there, they had the dummy right there on the set.
Does this help?
They would then take the dolls out and shoot the scene without the dolls, and then check them to see if the eye lines were the same.
Does this help?
Yeah, thanks. Do you mean to tell me that you could have taken your hand out of that cuff at any time?
No, not at any time. Only when it was funny.
Careful consideration was given to creating a 3-dimensional form for the 2D characters.
Well, in every single shot in the film, if there was physical interaction that occurred on the set, whether minor, bumping something that caused it to move, or he ran through a window creating the shape of a perfect rabbit blasting out of a room. In any of those instances, the physical effects team had to create devices that mimicked what it would be like if a cartoon character had in fact been in the real room and caused something to happen.
Bob Zemeckis' initial vision on this picture was to take cartoons and bring them into the real world. To absolutely make you think that they believe and are walking around with you. Doors opening and cushions depressing, and they have guns and all kinds of things. The interactivity of the cartoons and the real world was like the whole key to making the movie work.
Drop it! Run! Die! Yes, it's me, my dearest. I'd love to embrace you, but first, I have to satisfy my sense of moral outrage.
Gun down, you buck-toothed fool!
As computer technology continued to develop, more and more computer animation was being integrated into animated films. The Prince of Egypt from 1998 features predominantly 2D animated characters in a 3D set, with additional 3D animation and CGI used for select assets and
The
effects.
Prince of Egypt has brought the world of ancient Egypt to life by expanding the limits of computer-generated imagery.
The introduction of the exposure tool allowed a virtual camera to be placed in a 3D set.
With the exposure tool, the camera is completely free to move around inside this environment, exactly like Steven Spielberg's live-action camera is able to move around a real set.
Most characters were traditionally animated in 2D. However, advancements in computer technology led to the development of behavioral modeling, which was used for crowd generation and CGI effects animation. 3D animation and CGI were used for complex animations that involved crowds and massive scale.
The locust scene, for example, had 7 million locusts in it. And I don't know of one animator that could have, or wanted to, draw 7 million locusts.
3D and CGI were also used for details such as clouds, the plagues, and the grand parting of the Red Sea. The Prince of Egypt was DreamWorks' first animated feature and required significant financial and technological resources.
I think the important thing to say, instead of getting very technical, is a scene that used to take 9 months to try to put together. Now you can do them in about 3 days.
As we move into the 2000s, rapid advances in technology led to the rise of hybrid animation. Studios were embracing new technologies for their financial benefits, leading to the development of a balanced approach to hybrid animation. A balanced hybrid approach includes 2.5 animation films from the 1990s to the 2000s, such as Treasure Planet, The Triplets of Belleville, and The Animatrix. With the technological revolution at the turn of the century, 3D and CGI animation became more accessible. Nearly all animated feature films from this period incorporated a mix of 2D and 3D methods. Whereas a traditional hybrid approach showed a clear preference for 2D animation, a balanced approach is more ambiguous and often uses both 2D and 3D animation within a single character. The 2002 Disney film Treasure Planet stands out as a hybrid animated film for its innovative blend of traditional hand-drawn animation and 3D. The filmmakers had a 70-30 rule.
70% traditional, 30% sci-fi. It was a handy way of describing what was going to be traditional in the movie versus what was going to be sci-fi or modern.
We tried to get that into everything.
70% of the film was to be traditionally animated, and 30% was to be 3D or CGI. This ambitious approach showcased a shift towards embracing new technologies, despite the high production costs associated with combining traditional animation with complex digital methods. It required meticulous attention to detail, including 3D references for the 2D animators, to ensure characters were seamlessly integrated into the 3D environment.
Blend the two inherently is an issue in terms of how do you get this two-dimensional character into a three-dimensional environment and make the two look like they're actually in the same world. Probably the biggest thing is on the ship. When you have a 3D camera move around the 3D ship, you have to have the characters look as though they're changing in dimension as well.
In a balanced hybrid animation approach, There is a broader integration of 2D and 3D elements, including fully 2D characters like Jim, interacting with 3D or CGI characters like Ben. But when hybridization is pushed further, this results in characters with both 2D and 3D components. John Silver is a cyborg whose body is traditionally animated, but he has a CG mechanical arm and ocular lens.
And how about a mechanical arm and part of his head as well? I mean, how much can we do the CG blending of the traditional? It's something we'd never tried before, where you actually blend the hand-drawn and the CG. Probably the most rewarding part of it to me is to see how seamless the traditional and the CG work together.
Now don't be too put off by this hunk of hardware. Whoa!
Moving ahead on the timeline, the Triplets of Belleville expands the integration of 2D and 3D techniques. It is also a nearly silent film that emphasizes visual stylization and dramatic characterization. Characters were primarily animated in 2D, except for the cyclists.
We decided to go with 3D just to be able to show bicycles in the Tour de France, to show cars, to show motorbikes, to show boats in the harbor of Belleville, and to show traffic jams.
Compared to previous 2.5 animated films that tended to reserve 3D animation for technically complex animation or objects, the Triplets of Belleville expanded 3D animation to include repetitive motions that, if animated traditionally, would bog down production and increase time and labor costs.
To draw cars or bicycles or things like that, if you give that to an animator, 2D animator, he's going to become mad, and it's going to be a terrible job for him because there's no life to bring to a bicycle. And you would spend, a month to make it just slightly turn.
Continuing in the trend of embracing new computer technology, the Animatrix further pushes the boundaries between integrating 2D and 3D animation. The Animatrix is a 2003 adult animated anthology film that serves as a prequel to The Matrix. It is a collection of 2.5 animated hybrid films that combines American scripts with Japanese anime techniques and visual aesthetics. The Animatrix greatly reduces the boundaries between 2D and 3D animation and limitations on hybridization, resulting in a near equal split between 2D and 3D.
それは 3D という技術を使うことによってカメラワークがからエフェクトが
For example, the second Renaissance features hand-drawn animated characters painted on cells and combines them with computer graphics, such as 3D sets, vehicles, crowds, and effects.
The software that I've been working on for the last 8 years has been a means of integrating 3D computer graphics with the cell animation pipeline.
カットっていうとロボットとか人間側でないメカの方をほぼ CG の方で作ったんですね。で、モデリングからアニメーションまでつけて。
Advancements in computer graphics and technology enhance 3D animation capabilities, evolving hybrid animation to predominantly 3D animation with select 2D visual qualities. The financial success of films like Pixar's Toy Story demonstrated that 3D animation and CGI could not only reduce labor and production costs, but also could be used beyond traditional animation pipelines and stand on their own. Since the 2000s, there has been a notable decline in 2D and 2.5 animated films, as studios overwhelmingly switched to 3D and CGI animation, largely due to ongoing technological advancements and cost incentives. By the 2010s, 3D animation had become the dominant style, resulting in a long gap between 2.5 animated films. We have now transitioned to a modern hybrid approach that primarily uses 3D animation and selectively uses 2D animation techniques, or hand-drawn overlays, for visual style, effects, and aesthetics. This category includes modern 2.5 animated films like Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. The 2018 film Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse revolutionized hybrid animation, combining 3D animation with 2D to capture comic book aesthetics and ultimately pioneered the modern hybrid approach. The filmmakers introduced comic elements like panels, text, and speech bubbles, while character design emphasized graphic expressiveness.
In order to capture the spirit of the comic books, we'd animate on twos. And so what that means is in a traditional animation where you would see every frame change, sometimes we would hold frames for 2 or 3 frames.
When there's 24 frames a second, instead of doing all 24, you 12, and the mind fills in the gaps between them. It makes it feel more graphic. There is a clarity and a crispness in that, so we latched into that as an aesthetic that I think made it feel more like a comic book.
Additionally, despite appearing 2D, the characters are actually 3D, stylized to look 2D. The iconic style was achieved by hand drawing on top of the 3D characters, adding line work, halftones, or hatching to make them look 2D.
Hand drawing on top of the CG is a brand new idea.
Using illustration and hand-drawn imagery from the old days of animation was something we wanted to infuse our movie with.
When looking at the evolution of hybrid animation techniques, we can observe how 2.5 animation started off predominantly as 2D, with select 3D or CGI elements, and became predominantly 3D as technology advanced. And now, with the rise of generative AI animations, we may see a push towards highly stylized, unique, and artist-driven visuals to differentiate from AI work. Highly stylized hybrid animation has also been moving from feature films into television, as seen in the hit series Arcane, which features 3D animated characters with hand-painted textures, effects, and backgrounds. Regardless of how technology continues to evolve and affects the creation of animation, including the possibility of a new type of hybrid animation involving AI, the future of hybrid animation will depend on its ability to innovate and stand out in an increasingly competitive landscape. While we are just now seeing a resurgence of 2D aesthetics and hybrid animation in the US, 2D has remained popular and has continued to be produced internationally. Nobody, a 2D animated film released just last year, is the highest grossing Chinese domestic animated film. Anime, or Japanese 2D animation, continues to use analog techniques in its creation, where it remains culturally relevant and important, enabling anime to rise in global popularity. In Europe, France and Ireland remain the top producers of 2D animation, valuing the artistic style and cultural value. Hybrid animation continues to grow in the US, with many recent 3D features adopting a painterly style reminiscent of 2D. The global, critical, and popular success of animated films like K-pop Demon Hunters proves that audiences want unique, quality, and human-made stories. As long as animation remains relevant and cherished, it will continue to exist and evolve into new hybrid forms.